push the button. Let's see. Yes, it says it's recording.
So welcome to the OWASP public board meeting for February 2020. We have the agenda in front of Owen. Do you share the agenda?
Yeah. So just clicking on the 2020 January meeting minutes.
Okay. So the first item is indeed to the approval of the January meetings. I assume that all the board members have read the meeting minutes, so therefore I will ask for approval. And I go by names as I see them. Vandana? Vandana?
I'm sorry?
Do we approve the January notes?
Yes. The only thing is that we wanted to discuss about the January, my attendance.
Yes.
So I guess we should vote on the meeting minutes first, then if there's a discussion.
Sure.
Afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. I vote.
You approve them? Okay.
Yes.
Owen? Okay. Owen?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Sharif?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
And myself too, so it's approved by all board members that are present and not by Richard, who is absent still.
Excuse me, one thing, Martin, you motioned it, who seconded it? Was that you, Owen, for the minutes?
Yeah, I can second.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can second.
Yeah, thanks. So as the first item of the board meeting that's not in the agenda, it's I think one of the normally should have be done in the last meeting. I would then vote for going for the new business, the office elections, rather than the other items.
So it's the first of the old business.
New business.
I know, but the first, it's down as the first item in the old business.
It's listed in old business
Yes.
because it was on the agenda last time and we didn't do it.
Yes, it's
That's why
tabled in the old business, and then I see it below at again for the new business. Okay. So as we do annually, we have elections of the positions. The positions are as followed. It's first the chairman of the board, second the vice chair of the board, third is the treasurer, and last the secretary. Remaining board members will be members at large. The responsibilities are as on the website listed. So first one I would ask then, who wants to nominate himself for chairman of the board of directors?
I will.
Okay. So is there any other nominees? Since no, so now I go for voting for Owen Pendlebury as the chairman of the board. And I go by list, same names as I see them in appearance on my participant list. First one would be Vandana.
I vote for you.
I think you vote for Owen, I guess.
Yes. I vote for you.
Owen Pendlebury. Owen?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Sorry. I vote yes.
Then I have Gary.
Yes.
I have Sharif.
I vote yes.
I have Grant.
Yes.
And it's a yes by me too. So it's was voted for Owen to be congratulations as the chairman of the board for 2020. Abstained as not present by Richard Greenberg.
Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
hopefully I can do you all justice.
Congratulations.
The next position is the vice chair. Anyone wants to vote himself as a vice chair?
Yep, I'm running for vice chair.
It is Sheriff Mansour for vice chair. Any other candidates? So then we go for voting. Same procedure. Vandana,
I vote for Sharif.
Owen,
Yes.
Gary, Gary,
Yes.
Sharif,
Yes.
Grant,
Yes.
and a yes for myself too. So again, we have congratulations as for vice chair of the board, Sharif Mansour. Voted by 6 votes, 1 absent by Richard. Next position is the position as a treasurer. So who wants forward as the position as treasurer?
I'll go for it.
It's Vandana. Any other nominees? So then we go for voting. I thought the same procedure. Vandana,
I'll vote for myself.
Owen,
Yep.
Gary,
Yep.
Sharif,
Yeah. Vote for Vandana.
Grant, Grant,
Yes, I vote for Dana.
and myself, Vandana. So congratulations, Vandana. You are now on the role of treasurer for the OWASP Foundations by 6 votes, 1 abstained by Richard, who's not present. Okay, last role we have to talk about is the role of secretary. Who wants to forward himself?
I'll forward myself.
That is
Gary.
Gary. Okay, so we have Gary. Any other nominees? I think not. So let's go for vote. The same procedure. Vandana.
I'll vote for Gary.
Vandana. Thanks. Owen.
Yep.
Gary.
Yes.
Sharif.
Gary.
Gran.
Gary.
And it's a yes for Gary for my too. So Gary, welcome as a secretary for the OWASP Foundation. By 6 votes, 1 abstained by Richard, who's not present. Welcome. So to summarize, we have chairman of the board for 2020, Owen Pendlebury, vice chair, Sharif Mansour, sorry. We have treasurer, Vandana Fermer, and secretary, Gary Robertson. That leaves Richard Greenberg, Grant Ongers, and myself, Martin Bloch, as members at large. So I wish all the best and good luck for the new leading teams and positions. Welcome.
Thank you.
Martin, sorry. One thing, I'm going to put everyone that you motioned and Owen second to do the vote, correct?
Yeah,
It's
that's
different.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't make a difference.
It's not motion second for the roles normally. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. So by that, I would kindly transfer the responsibilities for chairing this meeting to Owen Pendlebury.
You don't want to continue now? For your last meeting? Cool. Thank you, everybody, for putting me in this position of trust. I really appreciate it. So I guess, seeing as we've already approved the meeting minutes, we'll go into the report. So Mike, Tom, do you want to talk us through the report?
Sure. Well, you can read right there. So the top 4 items that we track every month is membership. There was a slight increase from last month. I'm curious to see what the statistics will be this following month with all the new website changes. But and by the way, that's a net increase, so it includes losses. Momentum, the website month-to-month traffic is actually slightly up. And there's been kind of a side conversation I'm sure you've seen as relates to website traffic and its division across the 2 different sites. We're still seeing about 10% of our traffic going to the old website, and Harold and I continuously are working on kind of putting in our finger in all those dikes, if you will, to kind of continue to migrate all of the traffic over. The good news is, from a net point of view, top line traffic is stayed stable, if not increased. And then the operation metrics, you can see those. And then the financial report, I'll turn it over to Tom unless there's any quick questions about the KPIs. I do have, as you'll also notice, at the bottom of this week's agenda is a longer narrative of my report because it's so long. I don't like to shove it way up there at the top, but we can get to that later if you want, or if you want to do finance. I guess since I'm talking right now, I'll just go through this real fast. There's some updates on the website, as I've mentioned already, about the split of traffic. We still have some content migration for chapters and projects that's incomplete. You can see the metrics there. The events tool is in final development. We should be starting to test that this week. And hopefully we'll be able to launch by the end of the month is the current plan. Let's see. Project Summit, as you know, is next week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday in Cancun, Mexico. We've had fairly light take up on that, but the event is still going on. I'd like to thank a couple of project leaders, in particular Bjorn, who's championed making sure to get his team there, in addition to a couple of others. Conference updates, as you can see, the work is ongoing for Dublin as well as San Francisco. You can see that we've already begun to solicit sponsors for those. The current values of those as of last Friday are in that report as well. You know, as Kelly will attest to the fact, having the corporate sponsor, bundle plan is really helping because, people came into AppSec California and actually bought San Francisco at the same time, which has kind of got us a good head start on all of those. Operating plan, which you've seen, is kind of been waiting for the board to approve since November. We are actioning against it now, even without approval, because we need to have some sort of plan. And then that's the member survey is out. It closes on Friday, and taking advantage of the available hotel rooms, staff was going to have a offsite in the first half of the year. We elected to take the rooms that the foundation's already paying for, so there's a offsite for the staff will be next week as well. And like always, all the projects and milestones can be seen on the website under the www-staff repo. Any quick questions before I turn it to Tom?
Mike, I have a quick one in relation to sponsorship for Dublin. Does that include anybody who set up group sponsorship at the end of last year when you first set up that kind of grouping side of things?
Yeah,
Did
that
anybody
includes,
sponsor ahead?
I'd have to get Kelly to give us an exact accounting of that, but that is the all-in numbers for all of those events. And I will point out, when it comes to global events, what we determined in the August face-to-face is that global events get a $10,000 of the corporate sponsor for every event they're in. So there's a mixture of event sponsors and corporate sponsors in both the San Francisco and Dublin numbers. And by the way, if you go to either of those two pages, like the San Francisco page or the Dublin page, all the existing sponsors, sorry, those are not hyperlinked, but all of the current sponsors that have signed, if you go there, and this is for the board, and I would do this for all the events. If you scroll down, you should see, there's the milestone list, keep going, keep going, keep going, budget, keep going, sponsorship. So this is the list of all the current, scroll just a teeny bit, of all the sponsors that have signed contracts or have been invoiced or have paid. Kelly updates this at least weekly. That's kind of the simplest way to keep everyone on the project team, and by the way, anyone in the community updated on any future event, what's been sold and what has not been sold. You can see right there, that last paragraph right there above gold sponsor talks about how much revenue we have, both in dollars and there's been some euro contracts and some US dollar contracts, which combined up to that $90,000 roughly.
Okay. And do we think, say, for instance, that grouping in corporate sponsorship and all that kind of stuff, is that going to impact, say, the budgets based on previous conferences?
What do you mean by
so,
that?
like, that is the sponsorship going to be as high as previous conferences? So, like, you
the expectation is that the event P&L will not look as good because when we sell a corporate sponsorship, for instance, for $25,000, they get 2 events. So they'll get both of the events, and there's 5,000 left over, which basically goes to the foundation. So the idea is that the foundation has lowers its cost and increased its revenue at the potential expense of what we might look at from a budget, from a P&L of the actual event itself. But the good news is it's the same bucket at the end of the day. It's the OWASP Foundation bucket. So actually the foundation still wins. It just does has a slight impact on the perceived P&L of an event.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions?
I think it would be good, now that you've highlighted this information, from a board sort of notification side, it'd be good to see like the numbers that you're trying to hit. So Owen, if you go back up,
You'll see
so
sponsorship revenue right there is 450.
yeah, but what I mean is then you'd need to be able to say, as a result, what we're actually trying to target is this number of attendees, this number of basically the actual milestone that need
Yeah,
to
we
be
could,
hit.
Emily's online. We can add the key metrics you guys would be wondering. I mean, I guess Emily and I could probably sit down. I'm sure we can come up with the top. In fact, actually, that might not be a bad thing to put at the top of this page, is just how we're tracking against those basically KPIs, in addition to sponsorship revenue, of how are we doing on registrations, how are we doing for both training and the event itself.
Yeah.
So that figure there, the 292,000, makes it so that there needs to be at least 615 paid at the 475.
Emily, can you confirm? I mean, that number's in a spreadsheet. I don't want to leave my screen because
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull the spreadsheet up. If you can give me a few seconds.
And I guess that's so it says passes for OWASP members is 475. So I guess the price will be slightly increased for non-members. So that at least means that there's some wiggle movement. So I guess it's potentially around 600 or just under 600.
Yeah, I think the target is about 600.
Okay.
Yeah, so
So we do have that budget.
Yeah, it's not just like the cost, like things like, you know, we're targeting to go live by this, you know, the keynotes going live by this.
Somebody's echoing, it's distorting. Is that better now? Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. Yeah, so no, what I was saying is like, don't just be fooled by just like top, like dollar amounts, but just also like we need to hit these milestones by these dates in order for us to be able to do it comfortably, and not just these dollar amounts, because everything adds up. Like if you don't get the keynotes in time and announced, if this doesn't go out, then that also has an impact on the health of the conference, as opposed to just sort of some of the financial numbers, and they complement each other as well.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
go ahead, Emily.
right, I do have the breakdown pulled up if you guys want to hear it. The way that we reached the 292 was we have 105 registrations at 650. That's a full price non-member registration. We have 70 registrations at the non-member early bird price, which is 500. We have 280 registrations at the member price, which is 550. We have 70 registrations at the early bird member price, 400.
We have 35 student registrations at 95, and we have 70 leader registrations at 50. And I have also budgeted in here 70 complimentary registrations.
Sorry, Emily, you mentioned member price. So on the website here that's on the screen, it says 475, but I think you said 500 or 400 or
Which website are you looking at yet?
Is it just that it's different on the website?
Are you on Dublin.globalabtech?
I'm on the website, so OWASP.org. staff projects that you're on. It just says full conference passes start for OWASP members starts at 475 and training at 850. So just in case it's
I will, yeah, I will
on the
update
website.
that right now. The website that we've been drawing people to is the dublin.globalappsec.org, and that is, that's up to date. And I understand that people do go to the project page. I will get that updated. I always think of the project page as kind of our internal use, so that's my mistake. I'll get that updated.
Yeah, that's no worries. It's just a question, I guess. But that's cool. And the social events, Emily, I sent you on, I forwarded you on an email with
I saw that.
stuff. So just in case that is of interest to you, I can link you in if you're interested in discussing it with them.
Yes, I was actually going to email you about that today and see if you wanted to chat about it tomorrow after the call.
Yep, sure, sounds good.
Any other questions
Cool.
regarding the revenue? I'm sorry.
Anybody?
Are we targeting any more sponsorships?
I guess it's Kelly on the call. But,
Meaning more corporate sponsors? I guess Mike would probably be the best one to answer
Yeah, I was
that.
going to say that's an ongoing effort right now. And I don't know if Kelly's on the call, but yes, I mean, that's an ongoing effort now all the way until about 4 weeks prior to the event. The work is not
so
complete. The page only
I've linked
includes the status.
Yeah, I've linked Kelly in with a lot of people that aren't on that list on this page. So
Well, those are,
I'd say
just so you
there'd be
make sure,
quite a
the
few
ones
more.
that are on the page, oh, Don's saying this because on vacation. The ones that are on the page are ones that they have agreed to sponsor, and they've been either invoiced or they have paid. Prospects are not listed on this, largely because of privacy concerns. We want to basically, once they've decided to exhibit or sponsor, and once we've sold a contract, the logic is that eventually their logo and name will become public when the conference arrives, and that's when we put them on this list, is when the deal has been signed.
Yeah, that's no problem. I was more just saying that I've linked her in with a lot of local orgs that are here, so, and I still have a lot more work to do.
So one thing I want to highlight here is that HCL generally wants to be a partner with the OWASP. For APSE California, they were not aware about it. They were like informed at the last minute, and then they sponsored. So we might want to reach out to HCL.
ACL, okay.
HCL AppScan.
Yeah, they have a big presence here in Dublin actually, so that would be good.
Yeah.
Would you mind following up with Kelly, Vandana, just to make her aware, and I think she has a lot of the contacts, and if she doesn't, then if you do, then it'd be beneficial.
Sure. Even when I was at AppSec Tel Aviv, I introduced her to Ethan, who's actually the program director, and he sponsored us for a couple of other events. So I think I can get it check with Kelly.
Cool. Sounds good. Perfect. So, Tom.
Next would be Tom.
Would you like to go through the financials? Is there a report?
Hi, everybody.
And actually,
can you all
just
hear
so
me?
you know, real quick, hold on one second, Tom. Owen, you're currently looking at the minutes from January. You're not.
Oh my!
You're in the wrong tab.
That was a blonde moment. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stop there. Go ahead, Tom.
Sure. So everybody, I hope, has had a chance to read this. Apologies that it wasn't done by the end of January, but we are at the end of a year that we're going to go through an audit. So there's a lot of review and a lot of looking at things that we need to do. We keep it open at least a couple of months into the next year to make sure we capture everything that belongs in 2019, so that when the audit comes through, you know, we do what we did in 13 and 16, which was to get a clean audit. So, but I have December's preliminary at this point. As you can see, you know, we still have roughly 1.1 million in cash. You know, Sharif, you had asked a couple questions regarding the AR. So I took a look at where we were last year at the end of December. We had about 140,000 in AR. As of today, we only have 304 against the 456, so it is coming in. I can tell you that nothing is older than April of 19, so in my opinion, it should all still be good. A majority of what's in the over 90 column, about 90,000 of the 100, all has to do with sponsorships for San Francisco. I looked at this morning. So I think the AR is okay. Mike and I are going to talk about it, and even though it's not in our scope, Sharif, I'll see what we can do to possibly help push that along a little bit, and see what we can do. With regards to the cash, if you all read the report, you know, the chapters and projects are up over $1 million as they have been, but when you look at the chapter spending for 2019, it was only 175,000, which falls in line with where it's been the last 5 years, anywhere from 200 to 175, and it was 75,000 short of the budget we set for it. So I know the changes are being made, but if you take the chapter's 825,000 out of there, okay, and leave the project money in, this organization is still very well capitalized with the amount of cash that you have and the projects that are coming. So finishing up on the P&L, as you can see, we were short to budget about $1.4 million, but we still did almost $3.4 million. The expenses, again, were about 3.4, so we almost broke even because the expenses were about 1.3 less than budget. Now, what I want to do that we'll put into, there'll be a restatement of December because this is preliminary. Once we turn the numbers over to the auditors and they're closed, I'll redo it. However, you know, I'll do an analysis of where we were at the end of 18 versus where we finished 19. I think we should start looking at historical, even though we haven't done that in the past, because just looking at budgets, fine, but another point of reference, I think will help us. And I'll start doing the balance sheet year over year as well, because we can do that through QuickBooks. So
yeah, no, the trending would be good, but could you go back? Sorry, Owen, could you go back to the actual page? Yeah. So yeah, it's important, like, to basically tell the story, which is, yes, the reason why we were here is that sort of the events costed this much, i.e. the revenue for the events was lower than we've budgeted, as you can see here. But at the same time, one of the things that saved us is we reduced our costs, especially for the events, significantly. So one of the things that we need to do this year in order to make sure that there isn't a repeat is to make sure that the events revenue is back on track to where it was in 2018. So it's important for us to basically tell the story of what the finances are telling us. So is that correct, Tom?
yes, you hit it right on the head, Sharif, but I will say this, over the last 5 years, we have typically exceeded our revenue for events. However, we have significantly increased our expenses versus budget over the last 5 years. So this past year, the revenue didn't hit what it was supposed to, but we were significantly under our budget. To your point, it saved it. So me having done this for the last 5 years for you all, I was happy to see that the expenses, they got their arms around them. So if we can, to your point, bring the revenue back up to where it was, and we keep the expenses in line, because now you've got Mike and Emily and the staff, then we should be fine for 2020.
In fact, we may be more than fine, because if the expenses stay down the way they are, and the revenue becomes the same as what we've had before, we might actually have a pretty great year. So this is a good thing to talk about, is that 2021 might be a good investment year. Might actually have some cash invest. So that's something to keep in mind. Gary, you were saying something?
This is Richard. Do we know what caused the reduction in revenue?
I would assume, Richard, lower than assumed registration is part of it. We're talking about the two big events.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Richard, happy that you could join us. When did you join this meeting? Just for Dawn to notice.
I don't know, about 10 minutes ago.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess, Richard, I don't know whether you can see the screen, but it shows the total income and total expenses in the report. So I guess there is a variance, a slight variance between the two.
Yeah, so for the year, right now, we're showing a $50,000 loss, which is, for an organization this size, is close to breaking even. And again, we've got some cleanup to do. This will change, plus or minus. But the other question you had, Sharif, you had noted back in, and I went back and looked, in September, October, and November. November we were showing, a plus of 74. Part of what drove this is the way that sponsorships and corporate memberships have been booked before, they all got booked. But now we're having to book and put some of it into the next year. And you can see that by looking at the other current liabilities. Most of what that is deferred revenue for 2020, even though we invoiced in 19. So we had to move it so that we could show the revenue that is for 2020 being recognized in 2020 for San Francisco and some of the other things that Mike and Emily and Kelly are working on.
Okay, just for the rest of the board's benefit, what happened was in September, when we were looking at how we were trending, we had about 300K or so forth surplus. So we made more essentially. By the end of the year, that number had since went down to 100K. So I asked for what was the variance there. Now, keep in mind, this year was supposed to be an investment year, which is the overall plan was for us to just break even. What happened was the money that we traditionally use to just account for every year, because of the way we're doing now the corporate sponsorship, some of the money that came into 2019 is actually for 2020, which is why in the current liabilities, that money is basically earmarked for 2020, which is why it's not assigned to 2019 accounts.
Yeah, it's deferred. And to your point, Sharif, so the positive net income in November was $74,350. So you're right, it went down. I mean, once we started seeing this, it was high in October and September. We made a fair amount of the corrections in November and December, so now we should be on track as far as how the sponsorships are being posted.
Okay, so the last thing I'll add, and that's for Mike and Emily more than you, Tom, but it will be good to get a post-mortem just for clarity on the 2019 events, what went right, because there was a lot that went right despite everything, because we kept our budgets down, and also what went wrong, or what can we sort of avoid, or what we already are avoiding in 2020, to just make sure that the board keeps an eye out, a careful eye out on both events, and just keeps us honest throughout 2020.
Yeah, and that ties in slightly to the question that I asked earlier. I think it would be beneficial for the board if we could see comparative numbers year by year on where the revenue is coming from for events, whether it's sponsorship or attendees, so we could kind of gauge where we are with that. I think that would be helpful as well.
Mike and Emily, I can work on that with you. I have some of that already pulled together because it's been asked before, so the three of us can circle back and I can help you with the numbers.
Oh,
So with that, I'll take any
anybody-
other questions.
Thanks, Tom.
I'm sorry, Owen.
I have
No, I
a
was
quick
just going to say
question.
thanks, Tom.
I have a quick question, Tom. I can guess that it's still probably a month or two away, but any idea of when you project reconciling the AppSec California numbers?
Well, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I hope to reconcile them sooner than we have, but it's usually a month to two after the event. So I would hope, if we have everything, you know, all the expenses in and the revenue and the memberships and all of that, and we make sure that there's no expenses that are hanging out, anybody's expense report, I would hope by the end of March, maybe, at this point. I'd love to get it done long before we did it last year.
Good, thank you.
No problem.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. Does anybody else have any other questions or?
No,
Silence
just
says no.
sure that the takeaways that we've listed just sort of documented so that the staff can come back to us with questions we had for the next board meeting.
Yeah. It's cool. So Mike, you already went through your director report. So we did number one at the start of this meeting, the approval of the 2020 operating plan. Did we not do that last week?
No.
Or last month? No?
No, we did not. There were some objections to some language around chapter operations. Actually, when we first had a conversation 2 months ago, there were some changes that were requested of the goals, which I've made. And then there was also some feedback on chapter operations, which I have also modified. So my understanding is based upon all the feedback I've received for the past several months. This is the current manifestation of the conversation.
Yep. So we took away the mission statement after the last board meeting and provided input into it. I think there may be a few more people that need to provide input, and then what we were intending on doing is actually sharing it with the public to ensure that we're hitting the nail on the head and that everybody's happy with it. But I guess we're behind on that, so that potentially needs to be updated. But has everybody reviewed it, and does anybody have any questions for Mike, or are we happy to vote on the operating plan without the mission
So
statement, which needs to be updated?
Mike, are you saying that you took the feedback from the GitHub comments on the expenses and the chapter tiers and incorporated them into here? Because I haven't seen this updated plan yet.
That is not part of the plan, right?
No, that's the policies. This is the overall plan as to what the board.
What I updated, and actually stop right there. You're scrolling too much, Owen. Go back.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading. Sorry. Where do you want to go?
Keep going up. I think there's a thing called chapter operations.
Yeah.
It's past it.
You passed it.
So there was language in there about chapter balances. I have removed that language entirely. And all this basically says is that we're going to update the guidelines. This was all the language that no one was offended by. There is nothing in the plan about expense supports. My current plan is to have, well, the plan has always been is to have the operating plan approved. Then we have a triage of a number of different policies that are kind of in various states of completion, but they're not included in this document that we would then following and approve. This is just basically documenting what we've been talking about since August that we plan to do in 2020. I was just trying to get, and last year we did this without a board vote, and we could do that again. But I did want to get, if there was no objection, I would love to have the board support and vote on this since it's been available for comment. We have been coming after 90 days.
So Mike, the only feedback that I have that I haven't, well, two pieces of feedback. The first one is in the goals, I mentioned that we should have something around community activity. So not that just we have numbers, but they're actually participating and working on something. So in the goals, that piece I didn't necessarily see. In my opinion, one or two of them are basically deliverables as opposed to goals. Like have an event, but that's fine. The other piece of feedback, and again, that's not necessarily a showstopper for approval, but it is very ambitious. There are like 33 line items there. So I'm not entirely sure. You haven't stated which ones are the priorities. I guess they're the ones that map to the goals in priority order. But it's hard to see the woods from the trees with that one because you have a lot of them. Some of them are open-ended and some of them are quite specific. So that's the only piece I have on feedback on the plan overall.
Yeah, I don't seem to remember this community activity, and I think I was trying to do with the goals. If I want to remember, and I might be talking out of school here because I can't scroll the right place in this document, but
yeah, it's at the top.
Sorry,
my objective with the goals would be to make sure that they're measurable. So
Yeah.
the question would be, is how do we measure community activity? Quantify it, not qualitatively.
Yeah, I mean, it's things like updating the, Git repos, things like that, like actual activity on there. But I will leave it out just for now because we're also about 10 minutes on the clock. But that's essentially my one piece of feedback with regards to the plan is the priorities and potentially getting the community more engaged.
There is some areas for community engagement in here, and looking at it, Mike, I'm happy to vote on it. The wording seems fine to me. I had a proper read of it earlier on and just refreshed there. But the only thing is that the mission statement, once that's completed, it will need to be updated. So there's only more around of it and making sure that we're hitting the right points. But everything that you have in here is stuff that's relevant. To Sharice's point, I think the priorities would be a good one. There are some dates in here, Mike, that probably need to be updated.
Yeah, I saw you paused on marketing plan.
Yeah, that was the only one. I just seen dates, but sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I need to. I mean, this is a working document, but I mean, the good news now with, I guess we really is the wiki too, is you can see anytime there's changes. So if I slide dates to the right, you'll be able to uncover that. I will, just to point out, Richard did have a specific question about expenses, and I kind of, I guess, overlooked this, but under, just so you know, there you go, you found it. The one thing that is, I mean, this is not really necessarily new, but we did want to document that expenses over $2,500 must be pre-approved and expenses greater than $5,000 must be direct billed. We've had some, we just wanted to clean up that little hole, which is not expense reimbursement policy. It's just a matter of how we handle the accounting side of expenses that are for the foundation itself.
Yeah, like I guess probably one of the questions that maybe Richard had over the last month is if you were away, Mike, where does the approval process go?
That's the signatory policy.
I know we've sidetracked a little bit.
Yeah, that's on the signatory policy document that is the next item of the agenda. So currently, the way things are set up, the board is given only the executive director approval for expenses. And there's kind of the old signatory policy also allows the treasurer and another board member to intervene if the exec director is not available. The new signatory policy, that's the next item on the agenda, is written to be more, well, that allows delegation is one of the key features, such that if I'm on vacation, I could delegate to another staff member. Currently, I think there's some legal difficulties with me doing that because I don't have, you authorize me to sign things, not for me to delegate as well.
Okay. So one thing at a time. So the 2020 operating plan, I motion to approve on the basis that the mission statement is updated with the
updated or removed.
It should be removed.
It could be removed. It's not really part of the operating plan. So if you remove it, then we can vote on the document as is. I don't know.
If the mission statement gets removed, I can second it.
Was this sent out for our review before this meeting?
Yeah, this argument's
Yeah,
been available
it's
since
a couple of
November.
months.
Yeah, it's
Since
been out for a
November.
while.
This version?
I went on and made changes directly on the site. I didn't recirculate a whole document because the only manifestation of this
Yeah,
document is on the website.
I'm not prepared to vote on this because I need to review this whole thing. The anticipation is prior to voting on anything, we have an opportunity to review it, not live during the meeting.
No, that's not our point. So everybody prior to the meeting, these went up a couple of days ago, if not a week ago. So from that point of view, we all should have read.
No,
read it.
I did not see this
Okay.
version. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so I motioned to approve. Martin second, so we can go to vote.
Owen,
and
one sec.
Richard, if it,
Excuse me, Owen. I just want to make sure the motion right to approve operating budget excluding the mission statement. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Operating plan.
the operating plan.
Sorry. Thank
Yeah.
you.
No problem. Richard, if you're not happy with it, you can abstain from the vote as per the way that the voting system works. And you can provide input if something needs to change. We can always vote at a later date, but it's been circulated since November and just put a lot of input into it. I'm happy the way it is. Martin also seconded it, so we'll go to a vote based on who I see first. Sharif?
Yeah, I'm for it. Yes.
Martin?
Yes.
Richard?
Against?
I guess that's Grant. No, I don't know. That's Thomas. No, it's Gary.
Yes.
Grant.
I'm for it.
Sorry, you said it again? Grant?
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Yeah, I'm for it.
Yeah, perfect. Vandana?
I am up for it.
Okay, so, and I approve. So it's 6-1 on the approval for the 2020 operating plan. Okay,
With the remark of removing the mission statement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can do that.
so that was in the motion.
I have a few questions around the mission statement. I have posted in the document as well. Let me just open it.
I don't know if Mike has visibility on it, but Owen, you can share the one we have, because the plan was to go through it and then circulate it to the community.
Yeah, we've 6 minutes left. So the version of the mission statement that we have has been updated. I can share it after this meeting with you, Mike. The version that has been updated, and then I guess we need to share it with the community for feedback. Once we share it with the community, then we can vote on it. It's just not ready to be voted on at this point in time.
Yeah.
From what I understand. Everybody happy with that? So then we table this until the next meeting. Sorry, Mike, I know it's gone on,
That's
but
all right.
yeah. And then within the remaining 6 minutes, there's a signatory policy version 2.
I'd say we'd have to revisit this, mainly because it's also quite, the numbers are quite high. But just one point of information. The meeting is scheduled for between 5 to 6:20. Is this the case, or we finish or do we finish on the hour?
Sorry, I thought it was only till 6. So
6:20. Are we all comfortable to continue for another 20 minutes?
Oh, okay. Yes, it's me. I'm fine. As long as everybody else is happy.
Sure, I'm okay.
Yeah, sorry, I only thought it was an hour.
Okay.
So, Sharif, do you want to talk through the signatory version 2?
Well,
you had some comments.
I have some comments on it, but Mike, do you want to drive since this
Yeah,
is
sure, I can drive. So So when I look back to our signatory policy as it currently exists, it's actually not very complete, and also creates a lot of constipation for getting things done that we've already decided we're going to do. And so what I did is I went looking for a new signatory policy that would kind of better suit our needs. And I will admit, even publicly in this call, I heavily plagiarized the Wikimedia Foundation's signatory policy. It is Creative Commons, so yes, I can do that. But their design is what I have found at most other corporations, which is the board delegates a lot of authority to the executive director with, some legal language, as you can see in that first sentence, exercising all necessary due diligence and care, individually authorized. So the idea is that, I report to the board and I'm supposed to follow my, due diligence. And the idea is that I work within the budget. So if we, for instance, generally speaking, say that we're going to spend, I don't know, $20,000 on something and it's in the budget, then there's no need necessarily to go back and get more approvals if the executive director is just executing the budget and the plan. We've also been kind of in a little bit of a, I will say, kind of not very tight place. When we get a contract in, there's this question of who has to agree to sign it. And there's a lot of loose ends. So I try to combine all that into this idea that if we have a budget, then the executive director is authorized to take action on those. You can see some limits there. There's also budgetary limits. There's the top line budget, there's quarterly limits, and then there's individual item limits. And then if it goes over by 10%, then the idea is that we need to go back and make sure that everyone's okay. All of this hinges on having a budget, which we do have. Our chief financial officer is Tom. Basically, just allows him to dealing with money. We don't really have this in place right now. To my knowledge, I have not seen a board resolution that authorizes Tom to manage our bank accounts, which is kind of scary if you think about it. It's kind of always assumed that that would be the case, but the point is that having this additional language is good. The last item is this terms, and this is a fairly big policy change that you may want to have a conversation about, that first paragraph. So one of the final challenges we not always, but often have is twice a month we pay things. So, items get submitted, staff looks at them, make sure they're correct. If they're over certain limits, I have to approve them. Then virtual enters them in to get paid. There's two sets of eyes there. And then when it's all done, they send out an email saying, hey, we need to approve these. If the items are more than $10,000, the treasurer and also sometimes the board chair has to also respond. That sometimes cannot happen because, Sharif's on vacation or whatever the case might be. And in the time I've been here for the last year, neither the treasurer nor the board chair have ever disagreed with any of the items that have come through, simply because we've always been following policy beforehand. So what I was going to suggest we make a policy is that that information will still be sent to the chair and the treasurer. And if they want to refuse the payment, they must do that within 72 hours. Otherwise, the payments go as planned. And by the way, it's had all these other approvals along the way. It's not that they're just like, I'm just going to, Harold can't just jump on and say, we're going to spend $10,000 and then it just goes. That's not how this works. It's just kind of trying to make things move more quickly to make sure that we continually moving forward as opposed to trying to chase down approvals is the logic, because we've already approved everything was the logic. Then the last paragraph basically just, we're going to review this on an annual basis. And then some other, language about that. So that's kind of the overall concept. And I want to pass it back to Sharif. He and I have not personally talked face-to-face on this, but he might have some additional comments or thoughts.
Yeah, I think my comments also come from sort of a wider area as well. But the first one is, if we're going to make it a little bit easier reducing toil, but requiring sort of less feedback from the board directly. My personal feeling of it is I'd feel a lot better if there's wording around internal audit. So not only do you have an internal external audit every 3 years, you actually have an internal audit team that sort of reviews and provides feedback directly to the board with regards to accounting and the financial health and activities of the OWASP Foundation. Because otherwise, in some cases, we would have an agreed budget, but we may not necessarily have the visibility or the control on the budget that we usually have. So
And
if we reduce that, then I would add internal audit to it. And that's my feeling.
To that point, like, so Sharice's point on visibility, is there a place, so if there is going to be payments made without, say, oversight or anything like that, is there a place where we could start logging the payments so that if it is the case, then we know, like, so we've approved this line item in the budget, but on X date, this payment was made and it's available and transparent. Tom?
Well, we can.
You're muted. Oh, Tom.
Am I muted?
We can run a transaction report out of QuickBooks for you. We can continue to still do the payables emails that go through, just following this particular process now, and everybody can still see it. I mean, there's a number of different ways to get you the information that you're looking for.
And I do want to add, I do want to add that the current policy that's proposed is that Tom and his team would still send out the twice a month email asking for approvals. There's nothing would change there. I still have to approve them before they get paid, but it would just, the only little difference would be is that if historically, if Sharif or Martin don't respond within 3 business days, then it gets released. Or if I've already approved it, as opposed to waiting.
You know, Sharif Martin is the chair and treasurer.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying historically.
Yeah.
They both have to approve them. Yeah. Okay.
No. So yeah, like, and then also with that 72 hour email, if there's payments coming or information come to us, is there details as to what the payments are for and what they?
Oh yeah,
like.
Yeah, the email has the ticket number, the payee, and the amount. Everything that we pay goes through Jira.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. So I
you
guess
can see which items are getting paid. You can see the documentation backup, who submitted, who approved. All of that is tracked in Jira.
That said, there are problems with Jira. I had problems to look into Jira several times that I couldn't approve it or could not view it. So that's a problem. But approve of the payments, it's all information is there in it.
Yeah, cool. So I guess myself and Vandana just need to receive the access that Martin and Sharif had last year. I don't think as vice chair I had it. I know I was added to some, but not to all, I guess.
It should be sent not to a name, but to an email account. That I think Harold can change the name.
Yeah,
because he was the treasurer at OWASP.
Yeah, that's right. So we would add you and remove me off of and Martin off of that DL. It exists. Actually, you might.
Let me walk through.
Sorry, go on.
I wanted to understand the process a little bit more. So, Mike, when, for example, at AppSec Cali, right, because that's something I know well, there's a contract for AV, let's say, right? So you look at the contract, you approve it, and you sign it. So now you have that. Then when a request comes in to make the payment, if you're looking for the board to take a look at it, they would also need to have the contract to review in order to approve the payment. In the invoice, there's no need to submit the contract because it was already approved previously. So I just wanted to understand that process a little better.
well, the way it currently works is, in your particular example, the organizing team would, basically send us a contract to sign. I would review that contract. If the contract obligation, and this is kind of a place where we're a little bit in a fuzzy area right now, while I need to get the board to approve payments more than a certain amount of money, it's not clear when it comes to contractual obligations, which is one of the reasons why I try to clean this up. For instance, you use the AV, that's a simpler one. But like, for instance, the catering budget, for instance, would be more than $100,000. What I'm trying to do is get to the place that it's clear that because we've decided to do Upstate California, there's a budget for Upstate California, it rolls up into a top line budget that we know that that's going to happen. So therefore, contract comes in, I sign it. Then what our process is today is we wait for an invoice. We do not proactively pay, we can't pay anything without an invoice. And the expectation is that the local team will work with the vendor because they are the primary contact, get us an invoice, and then that works through the grinder. So it gets uploaded into Jira, and then I see it and I approve it. Actually, I take that back. Actually, Dawn sees it first. She makes sure that the project team, the local team, approves them because I don't know if it's right or wrong because I wasn't there. Then once I get it, then I approve it because I've seen that, for instance, maybe Haral has approved it, let's say as an example. And then it gets queued up to get paid. And then at the 15th and 30th of the month, accounting provides a list, a gigantic list of all the payables. AV would show up on that list. And then we wait for the chair and the treasurer, at least one of them, to respond for items that are more than $10,000. If it's less than 10, it gets paid automatically. That's the current process today. Nothing would change in this, with the exception there'd be more clarity around signatory authority for binding contracts. And then if the chair and the treasurer are non-responsive, we still pay it. Because otherwise what happens is it gets held up. And we've had instances where, in the past, even under previous leadership, that sometimes the stuff will get held up for a week or more. Not very often, but it has on occasion, which leads to a lot of frustration by everybody.
Right. So that was my understanding too, and I'm glad you went through that just for the sake of everyone else. But my specific question was, if you still want treasurer and anyone from the board to look at it and approve it, they would need access to the contract, right?
I suppose. If, again, all that's tracked in Jira as well. So when you sign contract, it's also in Jira. The way I usually, my operating mode is, when we sign the contract, normally what we do when it's possible is we forward plan those items in the project plans. So we know that on a certain date, we'll have to pay a certain amount of money, say for a deposit or whatever. And that gives us visibility when the invoice comes in and it's been approved by the local team, that there should be fairly, if it looks close, then my assumption is the estimates were slightly wrong and I just push it forward. I don't usually wrap the contract back up with everything because I don't want to overload everyone with a whole bunch of paperwork. I mean, the thing that I don't want to do, if I was a board member as a treasurer, I don't really want to have the responsibility to go back and re-review the contract for an item that's already been approved by basically 4 or 5 sets of eyes based upon an agreement that's already been in place. My job is to say,
that brings up the question, what is the purpose of the board to review it? What is it they're actually reviewing?
It's providing oversight and approval from a board perspective.
Yeah,
just so that I can't railroad something through myself.
Yeah, the first one is to make sure that the
eyes
amounts actually make sense, that they're not, that there is a receipt that is backing this up. If it also makes sense, like it's due to an event or the expense makes sense as well, then that's also the oversight that's provided. And in the past year, it's been pretty well with Karen. When I was shadowing Andrew, for example, there was 1 or 2 cases where it looked like there was an expense that was already paid, and there were questions as to why this was brought up the following month, and there were a few things that were addressed this way. So that's one of the advantages, as well as sort of the oversight for the board to take a look at that.
Does that answer your question, Richard?
I'm still kind of hung up on the limited vision that the board would have to that.
Sorry, you're breaking up.
What you're saying is we're assuming there's a contract, otherwise Mike would not. That doesn't sound like oversight. Yeah.
You broke up. You were kind of sounded very distorted while you were speaking.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that sounds better.
Okay, so my point was, without a contract, then what is it that the board would be doing other than assuming that Mike had reviewed the contract already and approved it? If that's the case, then I guess we're just looking to make sure that there's an expense attached. I'm trying to get down to the, what's the point of all this, really? If it's just to make sure that there's an expense report or an invoice attached, then isn't that what Dawn and Mike do? So I'm still trying to get my arms around what the point of the board approval is. If they're not going to have a contract, that would be a true assessment.
Yeah, I think, well, one of the, since you brought up AppSec California, I'll just use as an example. So, the AV is kind of a smaller expense. Let's talk about catering. We're kind of in a little bit of an ambiguous place today. The catering for that event was $122,000. It is unclear to me, after reading our current signatory policy, when and who needs to sign that contract, or who needs to authorize me to sign that contract, because it's over a $50,000 limit. Now, the thing is that, and I try to design, my philosophy is always have a set of guardrails and handle exceptions, as opposed to having an exception process. And so my theory is that we all know we're doing AppSec California. You provided a budget. We know the catering is going to be at $125,000. So, everyone's kind of in the know as what's going to happen. And all the board needs is someone to move the paper around and make sure the vendors are happy and the event happens. And that's really what they want to have. So the idea is to come up with a policy that when I get the contract, I can just go ahead and sign it because it's already within the budget limits. And then when it comes time to actually make the two payments, the 80% deposit and the 20%, that still goes through all the same, process I've mentioned to you before. And then the treasurer and the board chair will see that money is going out on the 16th and the 20th on the first of the month. And if they decide that, whoa, that's wrong, they can shut it down then. But if they don't respond, we go ahead and do business as usual and handle the exceptions as exceptions, is the logic.
I think that's okay. It's providing that there's a second set of eyes and board oversight on those kind of payments. So I've no problem with that. And that's right. The way that's been done since I've been on the board.
Right. So with that all said, then there's really no point in making another gate at the board. Then it's just the board can stop it if they see something irregular, but they're being notified, and that's it. They don't have to approve.
Correct.
So I'm good with that.
And the logic is that if we have a good, with all this stuff, is if we have a good budget in place, you've already you approved the budget. Therefore, we already know that everything's going to, all the little pebbles are going to fit in the bucket, at the end of the day. And it's our job just to execute that plan, was the logic.
Okay. So is everybody happy to vote on this now? Or would you like to take it offline and review it first? We can table it for the next public board meeting. If you want to ask any questions, or it seems pretty standard, similar to what we're doing at the moment. It's just decreasing the amount of time, I guess, that the board have to state any issues. So it would be myself and Vandana in that case.
I do want to say, Alan, there is more clarity around contractual arrangements. That is somewhat missing today. There's a lot of ambiguity around that. I feel very uncomfortable signing some things recently because I'm not completely sure that I have authority to do it, which is why I was trying to shore this up.
Okay.
The only comment I have is I would be good to sign to vote on it, by the way. But on those policies, can we see when the content of this page has been last changed without going to
Yeah,
GitHub?
sure, go
So
ahead.
which version is it? Because now
So go to the
we
bottom
see
of
the
this
version.
page. Go to
I
this,
can't see
go
that
to
on
the
the
bottom
bottom
of
of
the
the page.
page. Edit on GitHub.
You have to
Yeah,
go to
but
GitHub.
It's right above the
That
footer.
page,
Yeah,
goes, and
that's
then
what I meant. That's what I meant. Without going to GitHub. So see that when I go to the web page, I cannot see it, right?
Is there a way to link in to say?
Click on history.
So
History. History.
yeah, but
I don't
is
see
there a way
history.
that? So it's just here.
When
So.
you go there without logging in, I don't see history, right?
Oh, I'm here without logging in. So there's commits made on the 26th of December 2019 and the 20th
And you can
of
click on the
December.
little hashy stuff to see what the actual changes were.
This
Not
or?
that, the little 2721, that little number that's out to the right.
Okay. All right. So,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Is there any way to link this into the current website, Mike? So, like we used to have on
Like a
the
history
wiki.
tab. Yeah, I can talk to Harold about
so,
that.
Like maybe it's just a global tab that links to that page and
I know
just
what you're saying.
references.
Yeah.
I think it'd be easier rather than having to go to
Yeah.
GitHub.
And by the way, just you might get nervous looking at this page on what's on right now. You can see that the version prior to this was like a couple days before. So I was in the process of editing this document. I have not made any changes since December 27th on this document.
Yeah, no, it's clearly, you can see clearly that there hasn't been any changes. So,
It's just
yeah, and
important to know which one has been signed by the board. And so if there's been changes, at least that's known. That type of thing.
Then we can maybe add, so on the top of the page, similar to what we did to the Committee 2.0 document that the board had approved on this date. So then you can see the diff between that date on GitHub. Then.
Yes.
Can we just tag the commit ID as board approved? That way it's literally using Git's tooling for it.
Yeah. I don't know whether that approves, if somebody makes a change to it, then does it is there a difference between it then? Or like if we say, sorry.
Yeah, the moment you change anything in this document and commit it, there's a new commit ID. So there would be the ability to diff between board approved and any of the commits along the line. It actually makes use of the Git capability. So let's use it.
Yeah, I think that's good. Do we need to set up a separate account to?
I think what we could do. Can you hear me okay? Because some people have been breaking up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could.
I can work with Grant. I mean, I think the best way to do this, if we wanted to, one would be to have staff do it, or the other option would be to have the secretary as a GitHub user to go in as in their official capacity to do this one little Git operation, which I can work with Grant and Harold on to make sure that Gary knows what to do.
And in either case, it doesn't matter because Git will keep track of who actually applied that flag anyway.
I'm just thinking of who makes the most sense, and it would seem like the secretary would be the most logical authority for the board, as opposed to.
I would agree.
Yeah, Gary, are you okay with that responsibility?
You're muted, Gary.
Sorry. Yeah, that sounds fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay to vote on it. I would say that as part of a wider issue, I'd rather that we would also at some point look at having an internal audit on a regular basis to just keep the board informed a little bit better as well.
Does anybody have any other comments, or would you like to vote on it now? I know we've hit the time. So if there's any more discussion points on this, then we can table it till the next board meeting. I guess if there's no discussion points, then we could take 2 minutes to vote on it now.
Owen, I want to go through it.
Okay. Yeah, that's no problem. We can table it until the the next board meeting, if that's okay with you, Mike.
That's all right.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
All
right, so
the only change that we'll have to make, just so you know, is that you've kind of got this yellow banner that I've been putting on things that are drafts. So that would be the one change. And I also just noticed one misspelling, so I'll go in and make that change. But again, you can see all that in GitHub.
Yeah, cool. If you make it now or today or something like that, then we can review the bit that's or review it as it is. Okay, so if there's no other business, I will motion to. Sherry's waving his hand. Yeah.
Sorry to get away from everyone's time, but I wasn't able to actually update the site. I actually had a branch and a pull request, but I wasn't able to sort of update to add the new business. But what I had was I'll send over the page anyway for someone to review. But what I was going to ask is, should we, just like the mission statement and a few others, have like a formal process or at least a defined process to have a community engagement process when we realize that there's like a really large item that might, cause everyone to go up in arms, and we just need to make sure that everyone has buy-in of it because it impacts the community. The mission statement is one. I'm sure a few of the policies would fall under that. So I had a process in place that I was hoping that we would go through and eventually run a motion. I can send a link, but I also appreciate we only have 8 minutes on the clock. So I can bring it up in next board meeting instead.
We've got minus 2 minutes on the clock.
Yeah, it was till 20 past.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah, good point.
Send that to me, Sharif, too. My vision, I know we're over. My vision at some point is that the rules of procedure, which includes all of these things, including some of the more controversial items like expense reporting. There's a whole bunch of, as you can see on the right-hand column there on Owen's screen, of items that I wanted to shove into the canonical source of procedures of how we deal with donations, events. I mean, all of these things right now, membership, all of these things are kind of squishy and lots of different places on the website, and we're trying to consolidate it. We're not ready yet, but my expectation is that we would definitely want the community to weigh in on those items.
Yeah, cool. Well, I guess like Git seems to be the best way of doing it, because at least people can submit bugs or issues against it, so that it can be tracked and stuff like that too. So
right. And I would encourage everyone, I mean, before you leave this page, I would encourage everyone on the board, if they want to, they can always click the star button, the watch button, and they'll get notified of any changes too. So that's another feature of Git, is the ability to watch repos. So this would get you the policies and procedures. You'd be able to watch it anytime there was a suggested commit.
Yeah. The site looks a lot better, Mike and staff. Thanks for all your efforts. It's a lot cleaner.
Yeah.
Cool. So if there's no other business, Sharif, keep your hand down. I'll motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thanks, everybody.
Board.